Yeah. Yeah. Okay, but you're filming? Yeah. Great. What's that noise? Hello, I'm JJ from Good Puppii Studios. This is the first episode in a Devlog series for my game, Wolfstar Adventures in the Inu System. In this episode, I'm going to give you an overview of Wolfstar. I'm going to talk a little about the inception of Good Puppii Studios and why, out of the many concepts and prototypes for games that I have, Wolfstar is the project I chose to focus on now. So let's get started. Wolfstar is an action-adventure 2D platformer with a gameplay loop inspired by classic Zelda titles in a sci-fi fantasy setting. Good Puppii Studios is made up of me, JJ, and the rest of my crew. I am, however, the only human at the studio and technically the only developer. So I guess you could say I'm a solo dev, but I really couldn't do it without my crew. I've been playing games since I was young. I remember just really enjoying studying the maps in my Nintendo Powers when they'd come in the mail. I had dabbled in game development hobbies like map making and some mods for games. And then, I had played around with a few tools like RPG Maker, and I'd started getting really into making small kind of lock and key style puzzles in Disney Infinity. And it had a really cool community on YouTube. There were a lot of really neat tutorials. I had a lot of fun getting into the logic behind setting up some of those games. I spent a lot of time doing that, and it didn't hurt that I loved the toys. Yeah, and I think it was around this time that I discovered Mark Brown's channel, Game Maker's Toolkit, and his Boss Key series in particular really resonated with me. I mean, I had played all those Zelda games, many of them multiple times, and it was really fun and educational to see his breakdown and analysis of these dungeons that I had, personally analyzed so many times and kind of dissected to figure out why I enjoyed them so much. It was fun to see how our opinions aligned and how our opinions differed in some ways. But it was super educational. Maybe it was the inspiration of really kind of understanding some more about game design fundamentals, but I realized that it would benefit me to actually learn a professional game engine instead of just dabbling in hobby tools. So after a lot of research, I narrowed it down to two of them, the Unreal Engine and Unity. I really felt like Unity was a good fit for me and my needs and the studio needs, and I kind of went all in and started getting better and better. Once I started building up confidence in Unity and I had built a few prototypes, I decided to begin designing a few games and pick one to be the focus for the studio's first release. It was almost like a tournament of projects, and it got narrowed down. First, just concept art, then deciding whether that warranted more resources, the idea warranted more resources, like a more robust prototype, for instance. For me, it was very important to focus on the elements that I knew I could achieve, or felt relatively confident that I could achieve as a solo dev. For example, I love Metroidvanias. Hollow Knight is a major influence on me, and it's very aspirational, but I knew that a Metroidvania of that size was just unrealistic for an early project, of a new studio. But that doesn't mean I can't be inspired by something I love about Hollow Knight. Maybe part of it that I can achieve. One reason that I keep coming back to Hollow Knight as one of my favorite games is that the character, the knight, feels so good to control. And it again reminds me of Mark's episode, Game Maker's Toolkit, where he interviews the developers of Celeste. And they talk about their goal in creating a character that was just fun to play with.
That like when someone was just sitting there with a controller and the room could be empty, but they can move their character around, make like that feel good. Like
with no goals or anything, just make sure it's fun to be that character. Like I remember playing Mario Sunshine and just running around Delfino Plaza for hours because it was just fun.
And I definitely had that goal setting out for any of my games, but especially the first one. I really wanted a signature of the studio to be games with playable characters that were just fun to play, just fun to control. So, with that in mind, I did a lot of studying about what that means. I never used Mark's tool, but I completely see how that could be useful because I did something similar in Unity, where I was playing around with the fall, the rise, how long the characters in the air. And once I realized I could do that, it was amazing. It was so fun to be able to tweak that character and get it just the way I wanted it to feel. Another example is I want to create a large, story-driven, JRPG-inspired adventure someday. Again, I knew that was way outside the scope of what I should be doing for an early project, but it doesn't mean I can't practice creating a story that's dialogue-driven, creating characters that have meaningful conversations. I think is good practice here in a small-scale game, and hopefully I can translate those skills to future projects. Definitely go check out the game on Steam. Add it to your wish list if you would. And we will see you in the next episode. Thanks.